Well, here we are on a Thursday night, and we managed another nice day across the Northeast, but we're going to see weather conditions slowly deteriorate over the next 48 hours, culminating in some showery rains for the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states for Saturday. However, uh, gets better on Sunday. We've got rainy conditions into the weekend across the Gulf states and into the Southeast. The hot late summer weather continues in the West, and the tropics may be starting to wake up. We'll talk all about that and much more tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And if you'd like, you can support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast by using the Amazon link that's pinned to the top of the chat board or is on the descriptor to this video to do your Amazon shopping. Doesn't cost you anything. You just buy what you want, and Amazon throws us back a little bit of coin for sending you there. And we like sending you there. So, anyhow, how was your day, Mr. Rayo?
Well, Mrs. Rayo and I had a most interesting day. For the first time, we had full control over our new grandson, Julian Joseph. His parents are teachers. They just started the new semester, and we had the opportunity today to watch over while mommy and daddy were out teaching. So from 6:30 this morning until about 3:15 this afternoon, we were looking after a 7-month-old little boy. And I got to tell you, it was interesting, and it was also rather fun at times as well.
Good. And you got to give him back, too.
And we got to give him back. Yeah, that's the interesting thing.
That's the most important part of that whole equation is you get to give them back.
Well, I had anticipated that, his mom, my daughter-in-law, said, now if he starts crying, just let him cry. He'll cry himself to sleep or whatever. But I got to tell you, he was very, very nice. The only drawback was from my dog, Mr. Sweeney, our dog, Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Sweeney, we kept, cuddling Julian and, saying, how are you? And how you did? You're a good boy and everything. When the first time I said you're a good boy, Sweeney, which I usually call my good boy, comes over with the tail wagging. And I want to say, no, we didn't mean you, Sweeney. The dog got so, what's the word I'm looking for? Flustered or confused?
Upset.
That he actually, and he only does this when he's either frightened or when he knows that he did something bad and he's like punishing himself. He went into his cage or his house.
Oh.
And I said, "Where's the dog?" And he had the most forlorn face on him. And I said, "This dog thinks we are throwing him over for the baby or whatever." He's like, we're not. For the first time, somebody else in the house was getting all the attention instead of him.
Yeah, they're very sensitive. They are.
Yeah.
JJ's really good with my grandkids. He pulls his energy down a few throttles. He doesn't jump on them. And my granddaughter, who's 19 months old, 20 months old now, he's like pulling on his fur and trying to grab his tail, and he just kind of lets it go. They figure it out, and they're good. JJ is laying. He's not on the bed. He's on the floor, so you can't really see him tonight. Should have been on last night, Tom Contino, because he was on the bed at least for the beginning of the show. Anyhow, welcome everybody on the chat board tonight to this Thursday night Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, the last one of this work week, because we'll be back on Sunday at 7:35 p.m. Our normal schedule is Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. For those of you who are new to the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, or you're watching in the background, we'll be back on Sunday. Make sure you subscribe and turn your notifications on so you don't miss us. And be sure to hit the like button if you like the show, because we like it when you like the show. So it's a fairly, in some ways, it's just, I don't know why I'm looking at the way the weather is set up. It's just so September-ish. And it's, for a lot of the country, it's actually unusually quiet. I mean, there are some places where there's stuff going on, but We just seem to have this minor interruption with a cold front that's going to come through Saturday night. So Saturday is probably not going to be the best of days, but Sunday looks good, and and I think pretty much all of next week looks okay.
I think so too. And in fact, not only all of next week, but I'll go so far as to say, and maybe I shouldn't say it, but I'll say it anyway, that we may even have a great weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend from start to finish. That's how long or protracted the spell of dry, fair weather is going to be around here. And it looks like, some of the nicest weather we have seen all summer waited until literally the end of astronomical summer to finally arrive.
I meant to mention this yesterday, but this is the time of year because you don't get that many days in a given year where it's cloud free from start to finish. But you do see a lot of those kind of days in September and into October, where it's bright and sunny and there's no cloudiness anywhere.
And the thing about what's coming our way, though, and we talked about this yesterday, is that the winds are going to be shifting now. We're going to be getting into a more of an east or east southeasterly flow, and that's going to play a factor in what we're going to see over the coming next 24 to 36 hours. Tonight, we'll start off very nice, very clear out there, no problems, but slowly but surely in the after midnight hours as that east southeasterly flow gets itself established, it's going to begin pushing in moisture, which will translate into cloudiness from the ocean. And so we are going to see increasing cloudiness in the second half of the overnight. Some places may even see some patches of fog or mist come daybreak tomorrow morning. So when you wake up tomorrow morning, unlike the last couple of mornings, which have been absolutely sterling, beautiful, clear, pristine, tomorrow morning it's going to be anything but. It looks like, I think, kind of a gray, cloudy sky. But don't despair, because after we get the sun up above that horizon, and have you noticed, folks, that the mornings are getting a bit darker now, and the evenings, the sun is going down. Sun's going down now at around quarter after 7:15, 7:15, 7:20, as the days continue to get shorter. But in any case, once the sun comes over the horizon, it has a chance to work on that cloud cover, and it's going to have to work on it for the better part of the morning. Probably by midday and early afternoon, the clouds will dissipate or break up, and we should find ourselves with a bright and sunny second half of Friday, with temperatures in the mid 70s. And then, as you mentioned, Joe, the cold front approaching on Saturday likely will provide us with the threat of showers, mainly midday and afternoon into the early part of the evening. But the front is a progressor. It will move right on through very quickly, and back we go to dry and pleasant weather in the beginnings of that long stretch of nice dry weather, probably from Sunday right on through all of next week and even into the weekend beyond.
All right, let's take a look at the watches and warnings map tonight, and we have in the west excessive heat warnings and heat advisories from Arizona throughout much of California, except up the Sierra Nevadas, and through also much of Oregon and Washington and into northern Idaho, as the heat rage has parked itself there. Flash flood watches continue for some counties along the coastal bend of Texas, southern Louisiana, the southernmost counties of Mississippi. Then they kind of jump a space, and a handful of counties in the Florida Panhandle. Otherwise, the rest of the country is fairly quiet. We have no severe thunderstorm watches up tonight. We have no severe thunderstorm warnings either. So it's relatively quiet and routine. A few flash flood warnings in those red boxes you see. Three of them clustered in central Louisiana, in three parishes in central Louisiana, and a couple of parishes up in the northeastern part of the state. And here's the satellite tonight, and you've got an interesting feature here, Joe. East of Virginia, there's a developing low there, and there's also some convection that is forming around it. This might actually be some kind of hybrid type storm. Maybe it's going to acquire some tropical characteristics as it moves its way to the northeast. Could even throw some rain back into parts of Maine and into Nova Scotia for tomorrow and into tomorrow night as it moves along. And that's all coming off this uh, old, stalled out frontal boundary that is running from offshore the southeast. And then, we've been dealing with disturbances in the Gulf of Mexico. We've got one sitting here in the Western Gulf that's been spreading rain all week long from the coastal bend of Texas to the Florida Panhandle. I'm not in that. I'm on the clearer skies up in northern Georgia here, and the rest of the Ohio Valley and most of the North Carolina, Virginia, on up into Maine right now, showing partly to mostly clear skies. Joe's right about those low clouds. Actually, if you look, you can see on the loop there's some cloudiness offshore of New Jersey and Long Island by 100 or so miles that's starting to move back westward. So that's part of that onshore flow. It started today, but it's too much dry air, so it really didn't do anything as far as saturating the atmosphere. But that is going to change overnight and then during the day tomorrow and into tomorrow night. And you can also see the next cold front moving through the Great Lakes and down into the plain states. Some thunderstorms tonight with some lightning and thunder in parts of northern New Mexico and southern Colorado. Also some storms forming in central Kansas. So this is going to be the weather front for Saturday. And the fact that everything is moving along is great news because there's another shot of cool air that's coming down for Sunday and for the start of next week. And of course, out in the West, it's pretty much cloudless and also smoke freeless from what I can see. There's a little bit of low cloudiness. I'm assuming that's not smoke up in northern Oregon and Washington State. I didn't see anything with regards to any kind of wildfire situation, but it's just gorgeous there out in the West. And check out the radar. A lot of rain in Louisiana, Mississippi, off the coast of Florida, the Florida Panhandle, and also some clusters of downpours and thunderstorms in central and northern Florida tonight. But that's it. Radar's quiet in the rest of the east. You see some showers in the northern lakes. You see thunderstorms back through Kansas. Not seeing any severe thunderstorm warnings there. In New Mexico, we're seeing a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings and some flash flood warnings going up tonight. The Storm Prediction Center. Hello, there you go. The Storm Prediction Center has that marginal risk in New Mexico tonight and not much anywhere else. Tomorrow, we're looking at a marginal risk for Ohio, western Pennsylvania, northern Kentucky, and southeastern Indiana. And marginal, in my mind, always means isolated severe thunderstorms. And then on day 3, general thunderstorms are being indicated in New York State and Vermont and in central and southern New England, southward down the East Coast to Georgia and Florida, and then west across the Gulf states. I don't think this is going to be a situation on Saturday, Joe, where we really have to worry about severe weather. I'm thinking, I suppose there's always the outside chance that there'll be a thunderstorm or two that'll pop up, and I don't know. I'm not seeing this as a severe weather type setup.
Well, I think on Saturday, we'll start with a little bit of light rain or shower activity late morning or early afternoon. And then during the afternoon, as the front rapidly approaches from the west, we'll probably get into some showery conditions that'll become more frequent and widespread. As far as convection is concerned, I did mention on my Facebook forecast the possibility of a thunder shower, not really a thunderstorm. I agree with you 100%. I don't think we're going to see anything in terms of severe weather, although a rumble or two of thunder during Saturday afternoon or early evening might very well happen. But again, things are going to be moving so quickly that everything should be over with by mid or late evening Saturday. And by Sunday, when you wake up, everything will be gone and the sun will be out and it looks like another beautiful day and the start again, as I said, of a long spread of beautiful days. We could very well go all the way from Sunday through the following Sunday with not a drop of rain. It looks it's interesting to me, Joe, from what it looked like to me, the high pressure system for next week is going to kind of retrogress, if you will, and move back south and west over the Northeast and kind of hold its position for a good long time. And that again is a pattern that will pretty much provide us with a long stretch of great weather. And the only thing that's going to change, I think, will be temperatures. I think we'll start probably in the mid 70s on Sunday, but by the following Sunday, a week later, temperatures will be well up in the 80s, and it'll seem like summertime again.
Yeah, pretty much sums up where we're going with this. Now, obviously, on the WPC rainfall forecast map, it's all front end loaded. And, again, the rainfall for Saturday to Saturday night doesn't look like anything that's going to cause a problem. We're looking at quarter of an inch, maybe some places. As you go further north, the amounts go up. Maybe a quarter to at most a half. You go south, it's more like it's less than a quarter of an inch. Some heavier amounts in upstate New York, in north, central and western New York, where it's half to three quarters, and even some areas of an inch or so plus. And then, of course, we continue to see the forecast for up to a few inches of rain in eastern Ontario and on up into western Quebec. In the south, it's coastal South Carolina and Georgia, the northern half of Florida, and then across the Gulf states, the lower part of the Gulf states, particularly the Florida Panhandle, westward through southern Louisiana to the coastal bend of Texas, where we could see an additional 3 to as much as 6 inches of rain over the next 7 days, because with everything that's going on, not much is going to be changing with respect to what's happening in the Gulf of Mexico. There's nothing there at the moment to kick any of that out. The plains have no rain, hardly any rain at all. Uh, Tails off in the Great Lakes, in the Ohio Valley, the areas in the away from the Gulf Coast in the south, and then on out in the west. Uh, Mostly light precip, with a few exceptions. The front end here in New Mexico with what's going on tonight, and eventually up in parts of Idaho, Oregon, and Washington, a little moisture comes in. But we're talking a quarter to a half an inch of liquid over the next 7 days, and most of that is back end loaded with regards to what's happening longer term. So we've got, as I saw somebody on Facebook post and describe this as four lemons, Joe, on the tropical weather outlook tonight. We've got four areas that the Hurricane Center is watching, and they're all yellow, so we'll call them lemons. And the two, the system that's off the Mid-Atlantic coast, they have a 30% chance of this becoming something more than just a non-tropical system, as it has a little bit of time in the warmer waters east of the Carolinas and Virginia to develop into something tropical or subtropical in the next couple of days. Heads north northeast, passes offshore the northeast U.S., and then maybe eventually brings maybe some rain up to Nova Scotia, East New Brunswick, maybe even into parts of down East Maine. May get a little rain out of this, and then on up into Newfoundland. The other area that I think we got to watch is we got all this nonsense that's going on in the Gulf of Mexico, that's been there all week and hasn't really developed. There's one disturbance crossing the Western Caribbean that's going to get into the Southwest Gulf. And I mean, they only have a 20% chance for the next 7 days. And the one in the Northern Gulf that they have, the X off the Texas coast, is at 10%. And if we take a look on the satellite loop of the tropical Atlantic, you can see everything is so very disorganized. In the tropical Atlantic, you've got these sort of patches of showers and storms here and there, but the upper air winds are not really all that conducive for development. The Western Caribbean system is seeing an increase in convection this afternoon and evening. We also have, and I'll just go back to the U.S. loop so you can see what's going on in the Gulf. There's some kind of upper low that's sitting here, because you see there is a rotation, but there's nothing tropical here at the moment. It's just acting as a feeder, bringing up moisture out of the Gulf and bringing it into the Gulf states, which it's been doing all week. But interestingly enough, uh, the last few runs of the GFS and the Canadian starting to spin up a few things here as we move into next week, particularly the second half of next week. We've got something spinning up in the Atlantic. We've got something that might spin up in the in the northeast Gulf of Mexico. Actually, Joe, the way they have this, the way they have it, the GFS has it. It almost in a way reminds me of Debbie from back in late July, early August, with a low in the eastern Gulf of Mexico that moves to the southeast coast. This is next Saturday off the southeast coast, and then just kind of moves into North Carolina and South Carolina. And at least on this run, Joe, it's got rain coming up the coast next Sunday into Monday, so that would throw a monkey wrench into a sunny weekend if that were to verify. But we don't know that it will, at least not yet. And it does spin up a hurricane east of the Leeward Islands, which on this run uh, takes it into the Bahamas by the time we get into the long range. And of course, you know what? Prove it to me. Let it develop first before we start thinking about where these things are going to ultimately wind up going.
Well, I've per your instructions, or not instructions, but suggestions about the sharing capability. What I've done is I've gone to the Climate Prediction Center, and just to show everybody what I'm talking about in terms of a protracted or a prolonged, very prolonged spell of dry weather, I have up here the 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook. Now, keep in mind that the front that will be moving through this coming weekend on Saturday is going to be providing us with, as Joe mentioned, anywhere from a quarter to maybe, especially up north and west of New York City, maybe about a half an inch of precipitation and maybe a rumble or two of thunder, a thunder shower thrown in later on Saturday and into early Saturday evening. But once that moves out, and the sky is clear for Sunday, brilliantly clear, bright and sunny for Sunday, and right on into the start of next week. Well, this 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook from the Climate Prediction Center is for the 11th through the 15th of September. That runs from next Wednesday, the 11th, to the 15th, which is a week from Sunday. And if you notice on this particular view, let me just close in here. You look at this. This is what I'm talking about. We are going to be in the throes of an area of below normal precipitation. In fact, what we're seeing here, let me just go 1, 2, 3. So this is on the legend here, 1, 2, 3. So likely 50 to 60% likely below normal precipitation wise for next week, right on into at least the middle of next week. So, and you may say, okay, so that's through next Wednesday through the following Sunday, the 15th. How about beyond that? Is it possible to see what they're thinking beyond that? Well, let's take a look. Here's the 8 to 14 day outlook, which takes us from the 13th of September through the 19th of September. And in that time frame, we are in just normal precip here in the immediate tri-state area, although just north and west, still a bit below or leaning below normal. So you can see, Joe, that we're entering a pattern now. After we get past the wetness on Saturday, we're entering a pattern of unusually dry conditions. Dry in the sense that it is quite possible that we could have no precipitation for at least a full week from Sunday through the following Sunday, and maybe even a bit beyond that as well. As far as temperatures are concerned, if you're wondering about temperatures, the 6 to 10 day has us in above normal. We are, as I mentioned before, by the end of next week, we're probably going to be somewhere in the low to mid 80s. Now, take a look at the calendar, folks. As we continue to advance through September, the average or mean temperatures are going to fall. I think right now, here in the Hudson Valley, the mean temperature, mean afternoon high temperature is around 78, 79 degrees. This is implying, this particular map, we're going to be in the low 80s, at least maybe even the mid 80s, and that's through the 15th of September. And if you think it's going to go away anytime soon, take a look at this. Here's the temperature map for the 13th through the 19th of September, continuing to show above normal probabilities for temperatures. In fact, right here, let me just back up a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that means that in some areas, this area most notably, right here, extending from the eastern Dakotas all the way down through northwest um, Nebraska, northern Missouri, all of Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, most of Illinois, north central Indiana, the state of Michigan. These areas have about a 70 to 80% probability of above normal temperatures. And we're not talking about, for the next week or so. We're talking about all the way out to 2 weeks, all the way out to the 19th of September, which is going to be, well, that's 2 weeks from now, 2 weeks from today. So, what we're looking at basically, again, after that wetness on Saturday afternoon and evening, what we're looking at is a period of unseasonably dry and unseasonably warm weather for maybe as long as 2 weeks. So it's looking very, very good indeed. It took all the way till the end of astronomical summer to get this after a very humid and in some cases wet summer. Finally, we're going to get some really nice weather in here, and it's once it's here, it's going to stay a while.
All right. I got a Category 5 hurricane to show you.
Oh, okay.
Typhoon Yagi, which is heading for the what is known as the China's Hawaii, which is the island of Hainan. I think that I'm saying it correctly. And it's a little hard to see the island, but it's the clouds are the western edge of the enhanced clouds that you see here uh, now approach right on the west coast of that particular island in southwest China. And I mean, this is a buzzsaw. Top winds are 155 miles an hour, 100, they're carrying 130 knots, 923 millibar pressure. It strengthened from yesterday when it was just um, a minimal hurricane, strong tropical storm, minimal hurricane. So it's been strengthening rapidly as it heads toward that island for a landfall or a passage maybe on the northern part of the island from the way it's moving. But it's just got that classic buzzsaw look to it and that well-formed symmetrical eye. It's just plowing its way westward. And this, by the way, is on from Tropical Tidbits, the satellite loop. And we can show you, let's see, I guess we could probably use the GFS ensembles here. But you can see with a track going right off, the mean track is right near the north coast of that island, and then continuing northwestward and eventually, coming ashore in, I'm not sure what country that is. I don't know if that's northern Vietnam. It might be northern Vietnam there that we're looking at. So there are hurricanes going on somewhere. If they're not going on in the Atlantic Basin. So back to the uh, short range with that low that is near. It's about 34 and 70 at the moment. By the way, if you are headed for any reason, if you are headed for the shore tomorrow or Saturday, don't be shocked if you see that the surf is being kicked up by this thing as it heads away and to the northeast. You can see the GFS brings some rain, actually keeps it east of Maine. The rain going over Nova Scotia as it moves northward. And then, of course, the cold front just kind of swings eastward. The rain in the Gulf states kind of slides eastward. And there's a leftover surface low center that just sort of drifts into the southwest Gulf come Sunday. But in the meantime, from coast to coast on Sunday, except for what's going on in Georgia, Florida, and the Gulf of Mexico, most of the United States precipitation free. And as Joe pointed out, this big high, which initially, by the way, has a pretty decent shot of cool air that comes in behind it. Uh, but as the trough lifts out, the high settles in West Virginia, and then just sort of tries to build east and then builds back westward as we go through the east the next week. Because here we are, starting from Monday, the high just sort of rearranges itself jumps up into Maine, then back down into West Virginia, and then eventually later in the week it goes offshore. But we'll watch and see what happens with all these little things that are spinning up. There's another spin up east of Virginia and North Carolina later next week that the GFS picks up on, and then it also spins up that southwest Gulf flow, eventually reforms it in the eastern Gulf, and then it moves over Florida and off the southeast on this run, actually trying to bring rain up the coast. So I guess what I would say is if 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 there's no tropical development of anything in the Gulf of Mexico that winds up looking something like what the GFS has, then yes, it's probably going to be dry all through this week, all through next weekend, and you might have to wait for quite a while before we get into anything else. And of course, as I said in this run, the GFS has a hurricane that goes up into the Bahamas and then runs up into the Carolinas and points northward. That's this run. Don't be shocked if on the next run all of this stuff is gone, because that's what usually happens. But I would just say that the fact that we've had just absolutely minimal activity on top of all this stuff for the last 3 weeks. We're not going to go through the month of September without a named tropical storm. I mean,
Yeah, it would
one of
be
these things has got to go, is going to have to. One of these things is going to form.
that map with the hurricane. That was for what? September 21st?
Yes.
Well, that'd be apropos because that's the day of the Tri-State Weather Conference. Wouldn't that be interesting to go to a weather conference and meet with all of your fellow compadres in the weather field, and we're all watching this? It looks like a Category 4 hurricane coming up
Well,
along
if
the
you
Atlantic.
remember, with the superstorm of 1993, uh, the Northeast Storm Conference was going on, and in Saratoga, while this storm came up, and they got like 40 inches of snow out of that,
I remember that.
while the conference was going on.
I
That would
remember.
have that would have been a good year to go to that conference, but both of us had to work, I guess, or I had to work anyway.
Mark G says WCSU, Westchester, not Westchester, Western Connecticut State University would be closed. You're probably right. They would probably just tell everybody, look, you can't have your conference. This is a hurricane coming. But
Exactly.
as you point out, though, that's the 18Z intermediate run, and we all know, especially long range, how that flips and how that changes so radically as opposed to the primary 0 and 12Z run. So,
Right. Well, the 12Z had it too. It just didn't go out, didn't have it as far west, but it did have something east of the Bahamas, between the Bahamas and Bermuda by the end of the period. So we've had a few runs where it's trying to do something.
right.
So one of these, as I said, one of these is bound to spin up and strengthen. It's not going to go the whole month of September without a tropical cyclone. So
Oh, we shall
anyway.
see.
Yes, we
Yeah.
shall. You know what we're going to see right now? We're going to see
Willard.
Briller Jeopardy. Yes. Um, so tonight we're continuing the theme, which is average high temperatures in the month of September. And the first city, Joe, is Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. And these are average high temperatures now, right?
Yes, Philadelphia average high temperatures.
All right. Um, well, how about 82?
82 is just a shade too high. However, Craig Carlberg and Michael McGuire got it on the first, and Rich Rothmansky, 79, Joe, 79.
79 degrees.
And a few of you, first runner-ups, Maggie P., Patrick Darcy, Mike Waterhouse at 78. Oh, we also had, no, I said Craig Carlberg. Okay, we got that. Um, the next city is Phoenix,
What was it, Philadelphia, by the way?
79.
79. All right.
Now, Phoenix,
Oh,
which is on its, I don't know how many days in a row of 100-degree highs. What do
oh,
we
I
know?
think they went over like 100 days already.
Okay, so the average high for Phoenix.
Uh, But we're taking an average based upon 30-year records. We're not taking it based upon, let's say, the last couple of years, which have been
Right,
ridiculous.
right,
I like Dennis Cassie. He says 111. A reference to the honeymooners, I might point out.
right, right. Yes, I'm sure.
How about 102?
102 is a shade too high. However, James Davidson and Rich Rothmansky nailed it is 100. Makes for a nice even number, 100. The next one is Rochester, New York. Rochester, New York.
How about 76?
Not a bad guess. Not the correct guess, but not a bad guess. Vincent Croce, Rich Rothmansky, already nailing it. Jason Fox, Maggie P, Christina Pedia, Frank R, uh, Zim, as Helene Beloy calls goes by. Um, Mike Waterhouse, all at 74. 74. Next on the hit parade is San Francisco.
Oh, San Francisco. You know, the interesting thing about San Francisco is the warmest time of the year for them is, I think, October. Because
Yes, I was going to say September, October, they're warmer. They're warm
yeah,
months.
yeah. So it's not necessarily true that it's, we say it's always frigid during June and July or whatever, but it actually starts warming up some a bit during the September October period. I will say 79.
Oh, that's way too high, way out of the ballpark.
Oh
But
well,
we've got a winner. Um, we have a winner here, and that's Tyler Fienga with 70, and James Davidson with 70. So 70 it is. And the last one on the list, Joe, is Virginia Beach, Virginia.
oh God, Virginia Beach. I'm not well. I'm thinking that 79 in Philadelphia, and you figure, okay, they're further south, so they're probably warmer. But this Virginia Beach is a coastal town, so they may get some influence from the water, and that could modify the temperature some. I don't know. I'll say 79.
It's close. It's close. Frank Scalera and David Carter got it though, and Vincent Croce, 81. 81. And the bonus tonight is Death Valley.
Death Valley.
Yes,
How
Death Valley.
about 107?
Wow, that's close, Joe. That's close. Um, so I'm seeing what's putting up on the board. Death Valley, Carol DeCara, not 77. Frank Scalera gets it with one, and Frank R, the two Franks, 106. 106 for Death Valet. So, any plans for the weekend?
Well, Mrs. Rayo has already made out and mapped out what we're doing. Probably not much, if anything, with the rain on Saturday. But tomorrow we're going to the Grange Fair in Yorktown Heights. And then on Sunday, there is an Oktoberfest in the area around Poughkeepsie. So we'll be going to the Grange Fair tomorrow and the Oktoberfest on Sunday. And if any of you are in the vicinity of Putnam Valley, our German club, will be having their annual German Fest, Oktoberfest, a week from this weekend, which will be the weekend of the 14th and 15th. And it looks like, from this vantage point, the weather's going to be great. I said to Renata, temperatures will be in the mid and low 80s at least. And so, as a result of that, um, good drinking weather.
Well,
Uh, if you like beer, that's the place to be. Somebody just asked on the chat, what if I go to the Oktoberfest near Bear Mountain? I think we went one year, but we've not been back since. But this Oktoberfest on Sunday will be up near Poughkeepsie. So you're going to be in the area around Poughkeepsie, come to the Oktoberfest, and maybe I'll run into you up there.
well, tomorrow is Friday, and of course, Friday is Trash and Treasures Day at the farmers market. So I will be, I will be there hunting to see if I got a leather jacket there for $2. when I first moved here.
Wow.
Yeah, and an old leather jacket, but it was, for $2. Um, so I'll go tomorrow, just to see if there's anything that, I really don't need, but just the fact that I might pay $2 for it would make my day. And then Saturday, we have the farmers market at the farmers market, and that's all produce and fresh breads and meats and all sorts of things from there. And maybe Sunday I'll take a ride to Pixley for a little while and
Where was
hang out
it?
at Pixley
Oh,
on Sunday.
okay.
Maybe. I'm not sure. So anyway, that pretty much sums it up. So I think we can call it a night, and we'll see everybody on Sunday at 7:35 p.m. Eastern time. So have a great night, and everybody have a great and safe weekend.
Okay. You too. And see you Sunday.
And yes, Chuck Cardillo, I will say hi to Mr. Drucker. Nighty night.